What's new for 2020?
This is the Mike DJ Kelly podcast.
Sound excited.
This is the Mike Kelly podcast.
Mike Kelly.
Sat in the sunshine composing the new Mike DJ Kelly Shorter Than Short podcast. No algorithms, no world-beating features, just plain old newsy, sarcastic and up-to-the-minute fun. So we all strapped in and ready to go? Then let's launch into another mighty audio adventure and 15 minutes of free fun-filled nuttiness in the autumn edition of the very latest Shorter Than Short Mike DJ Kelly podcast show.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Here's a question, no mind games or anything like that, but if I say total tosspot, what are you thinking?
What's in today's show?
Good question.
On this week's podcast.
This is what's on the agenda, my friends. Coming up, Sheridan Smith, Joronyimo, Bling, Bacon Rind, SERCO, Thatchers, Greatish Rubbish Radio, and a whole lot more, but not necessarily in that order.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Out there on the internet, social media and in the papers we have the following. Timpsons tweeted a photo of the plaque outside their head office which reads as follows: "Please leave your politics in the car park." Bob the Dolphin says, "As I get older, I find I only need 3 shops: Specsavers, Boots and Greggs. My life is just specs and drugs and sausage rolls." Jack D, who are all these people who have more than 5 friends anyway? And the final one, Emma Louise Jones tweeted, "I've got a new game. It's called What Will the Government Announce Next?" And yes, the new dramatic stab. I'd nearly forgotten we had that in the toolbox.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
Remember, it's not the NHS test and trace, it's the SERCO test and trace. That's who the government awarded the contract to. But who are SERCO? According to their website, this is what it says: SERCO Group PLC, roots go back to 1929, becoming SERCO Limited in 1987, and in 1988 was listed on the London Stock Exchange. SERCO specialises in the delivery of essential public services, with over 50,000 people working in defence, transport, justice, immigration, healthcare and other citizen services across our 4 regions: UK and Europe, North America, Asia Pacific and Middle East. Only 4 regions, if you include the UK and Europe as one, which seems a bit strange as Brexit is still in full swing. Am I the only one who as a kid remembers the word osmosis being used? I seem to remember it being used to describe any magical process, or alternatively a process that did something that you did not understand. As we would say, it happened by osmosis. Maybe it was just our family. Okay, pod pickers, if you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use the following to contact us. And if you want to send your own stories for the next episode, email cuttings or sound clips to hello@MikeDJKelly.co.uk. On Twitter, we're at Mike Kelly Disco. Nice reviews on Apple are always welcome if you can spare the time. And remember, you can get the Mike DJ Kelly Shorter Than Short podcast from all the usual podcast stores.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
And my pod-picking friends, let's mix up our technologies.
Please fast forward the tape to the end of this side.
Then turn the tape over and you're ready to play the other side.
I'm sure there'll be some who haven't got a clue what that's about. Okay, competition time, but as ever, no prizes. What 1974 number 1 song are these lines from? There's nothing to it, just say you want to do it, open your heart and let the loving start. The lines again. There's nothing to it, just say you want to do it, open your heart and let the loving start. Name the song or the artiste.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
A lot of stuff on TV catching my eye at the moment for all sorts of reasons. Some TV shows improve as they get older. Love The Gadget Show with Craig Charles, Otis Dealey, John Bentley and Georgie Barrett. I reckon the current lineup and format is the best it's ever been. I like the way Tom Brady ends news at 10 with Nighty Night or Night Night and thank you for watching. I like Rich House Poor House and the current way of doing the show. Nice to see Tony Maudsley has a new role in Coronation Street. As he says in his tweet, "Goodbye Kenneth. Hello, George Shuttleworth. I don't like socially distanced filmed versions of Emmerdale. They just look wrong. People on dates sat opposite each other or stood 2 metres apart. Just looks wrong. Presenters who are talking directly at you on screen but not looking straight at you. Instead, their eyes are looking up to read the auto cue. Remember the days when you had presenters who had to know their subject, learnt their lines and remember what they were going to say? Nowadays they just read somebody else's words. On Four in a Bed they had a lady called Joronyimo. I wonder if that was her birth name. And last for now, Sheridan Smith. Who is this person and why so many programmes about her? I don't know her and I wasn't tempted in the least to watch new Sheridan Smith becoming a mum. Did that sound like a bit of a rant? Well, it wasn't meant to.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
Guess the celebrity, no longer with us, born on the 8th of September 1925 in Portsmouth. He was an English film actor, comedian and singer during the early 1950s along with Spike Milligan, Harry Seacombe and Michael Bentine. Took part in the successful radio series The Goon Show. He made many films and 5 of which from 1968 onwards featured a famous French accent. Who is he? If you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use either of the following to get hold of us. Hello at MikeDJKelly.co.uk, Twitter at MikeKellyDisco. If you have time, it would be appreciated if you could give us a review on Apple.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Interesting to see in the news a Guardian story about alcohol. Alcohol charities are calling for tighter rules on online delivery firms amid growing concerns that they are making home drop-offs to problem drinkers and children under 18. In the most serious situation, alcohol deliveries can be life-threatening. Julie O'Connor says she's been pleading with the delivery firm Uber Eats to stop helping her son smuggle 75 centilitre bottles of vodka into the family home, as a serious relapse could kill him. She claimed the firm's couriers had hidden alcohol deliveries in wheelie bins and flower beds for the 21-year-old to collect, so his family wouldn't discover he'd started drinking again. I asked Uber Eats 3 times to stop bringing him vodka during lockdown, but they refused. She said, "In the last few weeks, my husband caught my son lowering a rucksack on a rope from his bedroom window for an Uber driver to fill it up with alcohol." Also in the news, a story by Susan Smiley, who is probably related to Smiley Miley. The story goes, scientists have been left baffled by incidents of orcas ramming sailing boats along the Spanish and Portuguese coasts. In the last 2 months, from southern to northern Spain, sailors have sent distress calls after worrying encounters. 2 boats lost parts of their rudders, at least 1 crew member suffered bruising from the impact of the ramming, and several boats sustained serious damage. The latest incident occurred on Friday afternoon just off a Coruna on the northern coast of Spain. Halicum Yachts was taking a 36-foot boat to the UK when an orca rammed its stern at least 15 times. According to Pete Green, the company's managing director, the boat lost steering and was towed into port to assess damage. Today's do-gooders are Alcohol Change UK, who can be found at alcoholchange.org.uk. Alcohol Change UK is a leading UK alcohol charity, formed from the merger of Alcohol Concern and Alcohol Research UK. Alcohol is part of many of our lives. We use it for celebration, for comfort, to socialise, to wind down, to cope. We treat it differently to other drugs. It's legal, socially acceptable, even encouraged. Yet in the UK, 1 person every 4 hours dies as a result of alcohol. Alcohol harm, mental health problems, liver disease, 1 of 7 forms of cancer, economic difficulties, and so much more can affect one of us from any walk of life. For help and support, or to find out more alcohol facts, or to get involved, check out the website at alcoholchange.org.uk.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Since we were last together, and this will sound like I'm having a jizzy fit, Greatest Hits Radio has taken over all the local radio stations around me, and instead of having a choice, I have the same programmes on all the stations. There's nothing great or good about it. I don't understand why the bodies in charge of radio allowed it to happen. The programmes are bad and not local. The breakfast show does the same thing at the same time every day. What is it 4% of us do every day? Here's some facts you never knew. And the music, well, Air FM used to play up-to-date music, and its sister Magic 828 used to play oldies. Now all we get are old songs, nothing new. What's that going to do for the music industry? The adverts are terrible, a lot of government propaganda ones about why kids should go back to school. I'm puzzled by the government one appealing to the Windrush generation to come forward if they need help, and it has the line, "We will not tell the immigration authorities." Knowing what we know about the current government and their inability to tell the truth about anything, would you believe that? Also, on Greatest Hits Radio, they have a competition where you can win a sum of money, but it costs you £2 to enter. Is this a turning point moment? Radio stations have always had competitions, but most gave something away like tickets to an event, but you never had to pay to enter. It's got so bad that for the first time in my life, I turned the radio off in the car. I've given up trying to find anything that I would enjoy listening to. It's getting like TV, so many channels, but nothing to watch. Final point, how come you can hear a song that no one has played for years? Most recent example, one Billy Joel and My Life. Then 2 hours later you hear it on the local BBC station. This has happened a few times. Is it a fluke, or are the BBC presenters listening to Greatest Hits Radio?
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
Another blast from Twitter. Rory Bremner says, like storms, government U-terms are now so frequent we're going to have to give them names. York Mix, the Gerald at the York Minster cat has died. He was well known and well loved in York and will be missed by many. Maxine tweeted, just a reminder that now is the time to put your sprouts on a low simmer to make sure they're done in the traditional style for Christmas. Don't forget, pod pickers, if you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use the following to contact us and let us have your stories for the next episode. Email cuttings or sound clips to hello@MikeDJKelly.co.uk, on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. If you came across this podcast by chance, you can get the Mike DJ Kelly Shorter Than Short podcast from all the usual podcast stores.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Let's talk COVID-19 and local lockdowns. I think it's unfair to say it's all the young people who break the rules. I've seen lots of older people without masks, shaking hands and kissing goodbye to parties of friends and sitting in large groups outdoors. Now we have the new 6 rule. I like the way the government ministers recommend calling 101 if you see people breaking the rules. Nothing against 101, but if you've ever tried calling it at the best of times, there's always a queue. I cannot guess how long you'll need to wait now. I see Priti Patel has said she would use it to report larger parties than 6. Bet she wouldn't. Bet she'd give up after waiting for a while.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
What's the most annoying thing that happens when you are making a podcast like this? Yes, that's it. Some noise from the email because you forgot to turn it off before you started recording. What's the difference between laptop, netbooks and tablets? Have they all morphed into the same sort of device? Well done to Dave Clark, broadcaster, journalist and Springsteen fanatic, who's recently raised over £37,000 for Parkinson's UK by walking the length of Hadrian's Wall. You can still donate to Dave's Twitter account @DaveClarkTV for a link to the Just Giving page. Is Thatchers a good name for a cider? Just asking. Okay, let's move into dangerous territory. Well, for me, it is fashion. Watching a crime programme, it seems criminal types like to show off their ill-gotten gains by buying fashion items, what is maybe called bling by others. It seems the main items are designer clothes and add-ons, which are often sold on to recover funds when individuals are caught for their misdoings. Upmarket belts from the likes of Philip Peeling, Tom Ford or Gucci, with large ornate fancy buckles, all longer than they need to be, so they hang down and promote the brand, are in demand, as are Rolex watches. Did you hear that? You can almost smell it frying. Yes, I listened to the day's podcast about International Bacon Day on the 5th of September. It was very interesting, especially when their guest told us how to cook breakfast and started by cooking the bacon with its rind on to flavour the fat for everything else. But hey, hang on, when did you last ever see bacon with rind on it? Until I heard this, I'd totally forgotten bacon rind existed. I do remember when younger using scissors to cut it off. Now I'm hearing I should not have done that. I use proper butchers, but there's no bacon with rind on it in them. That's for Day's podcast that looks at interesting and occasionally ridiculous celebration days from around the globe. Just search for Ilkley duo Ian and Amanda's Days podcast to find out more. Another thing about Greatest Hits Radio, when they have an advert for triple glazing, which ends, get your free triple glazing upgrade quote. Surely we don't need to do this as all the info's in the ad. It's free, we just need to arrange a time and date for fitting. Does anyone else find picture verification rubbish like I do? The ones where you have to click on boxes with traffic lights and bridges in them.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Have you got your letter for your flu jab? It's like a military operation this year. You cannot book them online, you have to call. I was third in the queue. Still took 20 minutes to answer. Normally it's just held on a certain day and it's a walk-in. This year, due to the pandemic, it's being organised differently. You get an appointment, you must not turn up early, you should walk or use public transport as the car park is closed for social distance queuing. Only wear a small amount of clothes so you don't need to undress. Do not touch anything, and if you're wearing a mask and your temperature is correct, you might get your jab. We always like to share on the poddy anything new or useful. Not sure about this? It's hyperjar.com. It's a site that pays 4.8% interest if you pay up front for goods that you will buy from big brands like Shell, Lidl, Virgin Wines etc. in the future. Then there's Privacy Badger. Privacy Badger is a browser add-on that stops advertisers and other third-party trackers secretly tracking where you go and what pages you look at on the web. If an advertiser seems to be tracking you across multiple websites without your permission, Privacy Badger automatically blocks that advertiser from loading any more content in your browser. To the advertiser, it looks like you've suddenly disappeared.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
What is the difference between offering a bribe to someone to get business for your company compared to making a donation to a political party, then getting a large government contract without any procurement process? Just asking. If you want to get in touch with this top-rated, much-listened-to podcast, please contact hello@mikedjkelly.co.uk, on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. Indeed, if you want a podcast making for your business or need any help with radio producer or presentation work, please do get in touch. You can always get the Mike DJ Kelly podcast by going to iTunes or Spotify and searching Mike DJ Kelly, or you could fill your lockdown time by sending a text to your friends and telling them about the Shorter Than Short podcast. Quotes and cuts of the show may be used, but remember all material has to be got from somewhere and somebody has put some effort into getting it to you, so please credit us.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
On Twitter, Chris Hogarth. Here in Portugal, no mask, no getting on a bus or into the supermarket. Joan Bakewell tweeted, "It's not a question of returning to work. People have continued to work from home. Government want people to return to the office." Phil Kirby spent most of the morning writing a CV for a job application. "I'm so old, I have CSE in woodwork, but they don't allow children to mess about with chisels these days, which is sad." Paul Hudson tweeted, "Please forgive me. Under considerable pressure, I've put the central heating on." Faye Mitchell, "Just been swimming. Hardest part was getting dressed after. Note to self, stop wearing leggings on swimming days." Oh, and the late news. Did you know the BBC has a head of statistics? You don't hear the word pamphlet used much these days. Do you think the Queen could sort Boris out if she wanted to? Did it sound any different? Now I'm using the new Samsung Z01 studio condenser mic. Okay, it's time to go. I know it's crazy. Is it legal to have this much fun? Guess the celebrity, no longer with us, born on the 8th of September 1925 in Portsmouth, was an English film actor, comedian and singer. During the early 1950s, along with Spike Milligan, Harry Seacombe and Michael Benty, took part in the successful radio series The Goon Show. He made many films, and 5 of which from 1968 onward featured a famous French accent. Who is he? Peter Sellers, CBE, born Richard Henry Sellers. What song are these lines from? There's nothing to it. Just say you want to do it. Open your heart and let the loving start. It was George McRae's 1974 number one, Rock Your Baby. That's enough from this edition of the crazy Shorter Than Short Shabby podcast show. From me, Mike Kelly, thank you for listening. Please take care out there, and remember you can always find the podcast by searching or shouting Mike DJ Kelly Podcast.
It's new for 2020.
This is the Mike DJ Kelly podcast.
Sound excited.
This is the Mike Kelly podcast.
Mike Kelly.